And we are live as Julia's day drinking over here. So
you wish.
Welcome to episode 166 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. With me here today, in the house is Morgan Scorpion. Julia Morgan over there in the UK, and we haven't seen her in a little bit. It's good to have you back. We're doing an early show by the standard. Usually Julia is joining us somewhere around 1 a.m. BST. Here it's 5 o'clock around dinner time, so on and so forth. Welcome back, and always good to see you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, always. So this was a movie that you had suggested, and I knew nothing about. And when we had first met, you had given me a laundry list of films that you thought I should check out, and some I have, and some I haven't. One of the first ones I checked out, though, was Lake Mungo, which is a completely different movie from this. Lake Mungo is a slasher film, and I would argue a top-notch, underrated, underappreciated slasher film. I'm not necessarily a fan of slasher films per se because, they just tend to be gore for gore's sake a lot of times, at least here in Hollywood. But this was actually a really good movie. This, however, I had no idea about. It was on the list, and it just kept popping up from time to time. And then you and I think I reached out about a week or so ago, and I was just like, hey, do you want to finally cover this movie? And I saw that it was available on Tubi, and you're like, yeah, let's do it. So here we are talking about Lake Mungo from 2008. Are you ready to go? Then we shall. So, off the top, give me your impressions of this film. What drew you to it? What drew you to recommend it? What is it about this film that works for you?
That is a good question, because I have difficulty answering that. It isn't normally the kind of movie I like, because I tend to like the monsters, the ghosts, the in-your-face kind of stuff. Whereas Lake Mungo is an extremely subtle kind of film. I've got to be a bit controversial here, because I didn't think it was particularly frightening. I didn't find it a frightening experience at all. Yeah. What I found was that it was emotionally incredibly intense. Almost soap opera like, except I think it's got more depth than a soap opera would have.
Well, yeah.
It's looking into grief and alienation, really.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I suppose you might even call it existential horror. I'm not quite sure what that means, but it deals with the pain of being human, and that sounds like it's an awfully pretentious and boring film, which it actually isn't. It's I found it emotionally very intense, because you get a strong feeling of a family that is torn apart by grief.
Yeah.
And the possible intervention of supernatural elements, I think, adds a new twist to it, because, a lot of people go to spiritualism in order to gain comfort from the knowledge that their dead ones, their loved ones are still it still exists somewhere on another plane of existence, and they can that they're happy, and that the afterlife is wonderful, and
that people are at
but for
rest.
these people, yes, but for these people, it just makes everything a whole lot worse. It turns out we're told at the beginning that Alice kept secrets, and she kept secret the fact that she keeps secrets.
Yeah.
And are we allowed to mention spoilers here?
Yeah, it's 2008, Julia. I mean, it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, let me just say right now, this show is available on Tubi. All of our shows, unless we're covering something like, the new Evil Dead film or something like that, in which case, it's a couple of weeks. But yeah, from 2015, this is available on Tubi right now in the US. How did you get access to it? Did you say you got it on Prime?
Sorry?
How did you, like, if you're in the UK, how can you access this movie?
Well, you can get it on Amazon Prime UK.
Okay.
And a very reasonable price.
Okay.
And it's available other places online, but I like to get it from Amazon Prime UK because in the hopes that some of the money gets to the filmmakers who deserve it.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with you, and I didn't know what to expect. This is a ghost story, for all intents and purposes, but it's not a horror film. It probably leans more toward the paranormal. Can you hear me? I think my camera.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly well. A lot of people who have talked about it have said that it was the most frightening film that they've ever seen. Like I said, I didn't find it frightening. I found it incredibly moving and incredibly sad, because there's no real closure for Alice.
No.
Like in her way, she's invisible, even though they keep seeing her everywhere. It's
Yeah, it's a difficult film. I find that most ghost stories are tinged with tragedy, either through wrongful death. Well, one usually most ghost stories involve some sort of wrongful death, and then on top of that, what ends up happening is you find that the dead person is unable to rest, is unable to transition to the next place. So they're very much, this isn't Casper the Friendly Ghost. These are, people that are struggling, very, very unhappy. The family is usually very unhappy, having trouble, accepting the death of a loved one. And this checked off a lot of those boxes. It's not, you're right. It's not a horror story. It's almost like a documentary of a death, and then tinged with some paranormal elements. Excuse me. I was reminded a little bit of the film Personal Shopper, although that had a much higher budget. Did you see that movie?
I've never seen that one, no.
Personal Shopper is the story, and it's got Kristen Stewart of all people, but she plays someone living in Paris whose brother has recently died, and they are supposedly both mediums, and she is remaining months after her brother's death, because each of them promised the other that whoever went first, one would give some sign from the afterlife that things were okay.
Yes.
And it's a very difficult thing, what's going on with, his now a girlfriend, his former girlfriend, and her transition, not really wanting to be there. Everybody is struggling. Here in this story, you have, a basic family. You have a mom and a dad, and, a girl named Alice, and an older brother. And through some unfortunate set of circumstances, the daughter drowns in a lake. Nothing, no foul play or anything like that. It just happens to be, one of those things that happens, unfortunately, every day, and, destroys families every day. And this family is no exception. Wow, something's really blinking on my camera here. Okay, I'll just go with the avatar and work on it later. Something is, this basically ruins the family. The family is destroyed. Parents have lost their child. A brother has lost his sister. And everybody is kind of reeling. And that's kind of, you're right in the sense that that's kind of what the story is about. It's more about the family almost than and what they do in the after effect of this girl's death. Do you want to talk about that? I mean,
well, anybody who gets beyond a certain age knows what it's like to lose somebody that they desperately love.
yes.
And the emotional devastation, it's very difficult to go on full stop when the loss is there. I want to tell a little bit of a personal story here. I had a friend, John Muratori, and he used to run a cafe near to where I lived. He's English of Italian ancestry, not that that's relevant, but he used to get up at 5 o'clock every morning to open the cafe at 6, and then the cafe would stay open till about 10 o'clock at night, and then you'd have to tidy everything up and close it down. And as you can imagine, this is a very punishing workload. So at the age of 57, he died. He had a heart attack and died. Anybody who says that hard work never killed anyone, well, it killed him. Anyway, the thing is, the family tried to keep the cafe going. But I was talking with one of the waitresses on the way there one day, and I said I kept getting the feeling that he was going to walk in at any moment. And she said to me that that's how she felt, and that's how they all felt, only it was much worse because they were there all day. They kept feeling that he was going to walk in. There were numerous occasions when I walked past, and I was sure I saw him, but I'd take a second look, and it was somebody else who looked a bit like him. So I'm not sure what the phenomenon is. It's well known that for some people, being in the place where they used to see their dead loved one, and they think the person's going to walk in at any moment.
Right.
Or they think they see them here, or they think they see them there. The cafe ended up closing down, which is very sad, because it was a local institution. But, I was... Now, he wasn't like an intimate friend, but he was a friend. And I can only imagine how much worse that would be if it was a family member. And if you're living in the house where you're used to seeing them and used to hearing them, and the feeling that they might still be there, or that they could walk in, or that they're just in another room right now. No wonder people believe in ghosts.
Yeah, there's too much of that energy. Whether you're talking about thermodynamics, matter, is neither created or destroyed. It just transitions from one form to another, liquid to gas. Fire, turns into smoke and cinder. These sorts of things. There's probably some, reasonable argument that the energy of that person, still kind of remains. And this family goes through different steps of trying to, come to terms with the death of this kid. And then, they start hiring a psychic. But even before that, the father actually claims to see, and I love how this is done, and it's still effective. The father claims to see the daughter one day in the home, which bewilders him terribly. And then the mother, starting to believe from perhaps photographs that were taken, around the area that, looked like, the daughter was somewhere far off in the background.
Yes.
that, her daughter is still alive. And then, what I thought would have just been, catastrophic damage to the marriage. She insists that they have the daughter's body exhumed.
Mm.
For the purposes of, a DNA certification, because she starts to believe that her daughter is still alive. And the entire time I'm thinking, wow, these people are just coming unglued.
Yeah.
Because the husband has already identified the body, and you can see that the body is just in an atrocious state from drowning, and being submerged and waterlogged, for hours, and then having to do that. And then, months later, having to re-exhume the body. I thought this was going to move in a direction where, I'm like, wow, this marriage is not going to survive this, because I was thinking, if I had told my wife that I had seen what I had seen in the house, and she was still insisting that I dig up the body again, that would have been I'm not sure if that would not have been a deal breaker. Very, very, very difficult to get past. Finding out that the son, for whatever reason, is acting out. And did I get this correctly? He's posing as the daughter in the photographs for these far off shots.
Well, that might. I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
Okay.
He might have been there, but
the problem, go ahead.
Where did he get those bruises? My very much is made of the fact that he's covered in rather awful bruises.
Yeah.
Which he gives no explanation, and we never do find out what that was all about.
Well, I mean, there are so many. It's a good story, but you're right. There are a lot of things in this movie that, just sort of don't get resolved. There are a lot of things, and, you wonder if, they're sort of plot holes. There are a lot of holes here that, just never get filled in. And, that's one of the sort of, I guess you could call it a strike against it, because it has a ton of atmosphere. It's very much, a character study on this family, with a tinge of the paranormal in there. And that, no matter what happens, there are these recurring kinds of episodes where, someone's in the background, even though some of the paranormal things in the house are debunked, there are images on top of images.
Yeah.
And then, kind of, I mean, I don't understand where this came from, but then there's the big reveal about the next door neighbors. And you're just like, well, where the hell did that happen? Where the hell did that come from? You end up.
It's all about secrets and alienation.
What do you mean by alienation? Because the secrets I get. Okay. What do you mean by alienation?
Well, secrets serve to alienate you from people, because the stuff you have to keep from them at all costs. So that means you've got to, well, I suppose you could try just not mentioning it and hope they never guess. But so much that she had to conceal that she had this ongoing sexual relationship with the couple next door, which may have been going on for years. And if that is the case, it started when she was underage. So
yeah, you got the impression she might have been under. You got the impression she might have been underage at the time of her death. They never exactly get into it. It's very close.
In fact, I don't know what the age of consent is in Australia. No, it's 16 in the UK. So yes.
Okay. Yeah, but she's been having a full sexual relationship with the neighbor next door, the husband and the wife.
Yeah.
It's been documented. They've been videotaping. They've been making sex tapes.
Yep.
One of which she keeps in like a Brinks box, like a vault box, in her room. All these things to just further damage the family.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's an extra twist of the screw for the parents to find that this was going on with with people that they trusted.
Yeah. Right next door.
But there's a number of times they talk about that Alice was secretive and reserved, that Alice's mother was secretive and reserved. She doesn't get on with her mother. And that Alice's grandmother was also secretive and reserved. That there was never, there's always a feeling of emotional distance, that there was no real emotional intimacy there.
Well, the way that they... Go ahead.
Now I've completely lost my track.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the sort of the alienation, that these are women who don't quite connect with the people around them. And seems to me that the mother connects perfectly with the people around her, but what would I know? I don't have a family. But
same here. I don't know what, because there was this always thing that, she didn't, there was that recurring, idea that she didn't give 100%.
Yeah.
She didn't give 100%, that there was some part that she held back for herself. Seemingly to no purpose. I mean, the mom didn't seem to have any great secrets. The grandmother, at least, didn't come out in the movie that she had any great secrets. But this girl, Alice, clearly had several secrets that she, kind of kept to herself. One, she's having threesomes with the neighbors right next door. And then, you finally...
She also kept the fact that she saw her doppelganger at Lake Mungo. She kept that secret. That she'd been to a medium. She kept that secret.
The same medium that she had been... That the family had been consulted.
Went to after she died. So we've got the mediums keeping secrets too, though we can believe that he's doing it in good faith.
Did you? Because let me ask you: did you believe that? Because what ends up happening is that the family's consulting a medium. They hold a séance to no real effect, but then they find out down the road that before the daughter died, she had been consulting the same medium.
Yes.
Did you find fault? Yeah, that's my. Did you find fault with Ralph?
He was not an honest person. He believed, or he said he believed that he was keeping the girl's confidence.
Her confidentiality,
she's dead. Should he be? I don't know. I don't think he was really helping the family at all, though. The alienation that comes from, they couldn't see Alice when she was alive, and they can't see her now that she's dead. All they can see are a few distorted images in photographs, some of which their son faked.
Yeah. And
to my mind, the horror is perhaps the wrong word, but the incredible sadness that Alice was invisible in life. She's invisible in death.
Yes.
And she chose to become invisible. She chose to keep the secrets. So,
I think that those sorts of activities, one, perhaps having an underage relationship with, two consenting adults is not something that you are necessarily open to disclosing.
Yeah.
So that's a tough spot to be in. No one's going to admit that they're having a threesome with their neighbor, whether they're, overage or underage or over 18. No one's going to do that.
Not the thing you shout about.
Yeah, you don't, because the people that you tell are going to tell someone else.
Indeed.
If you tell your parents, the cops are going to get involved.
People can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
In that case, 3 people.
But I mean, so there's that. Um, and then yes, we find out towards the end of the movie that on a camping trip the year before, she is confronted by what appears to be an apparition of her own death. Perhaps forecast. It's the only real scare, and it's only momentary. It only happens for a moment. Sort of foretelling that she is going to pass.
Yes.
And it is a disturbing image. It's identical to, the body in its form as they pulled it out of the lake after being dead for hours. It's a disturbing thing, but she never discloses that either. And I think to some extent, children of that age, maybe especially females, I couldn't say particular, are sort of secretive. They don't necessarily share everything with their parents. These sorts of things. She didn't share any of those things with her friends. Is it better? Here's a question. Is it better for the family now that they know these things?
Well, I think what we see in the movie is that at the end of the movie, the rest of the family are happy. They've had, for as far as they think, they've had some kind of closure, and we see them happily getting on with their life. So it clearly did them good, in a way.
Here's a follow-up question, though. Is that just a byproduct of the standard passage of time? Or do you think the disclosures...
That's a good question. Well, what is the passage of time? I mean, the Victorians used to have a mourning period of 2 years, with the first year in heavy mourning and then, gradually lightening up as the time went by. But how much time has passed? A year and a half? I don't know how much time has passed by the end of the movie.
Something along those lines,
yeah.
Yes.
I don't think it is just the passage of time, because I don't think they've had quite long enough.
And maybe especially for parents, it may not be something you ever really get.
Some parents never do.
Yeah.
Some parents never do. They will be grieving for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, maybe it's just something you get better about, like any, heavy trauma.
I think different things take different people different ways.
Yeah. It's an interesting movie. Again, no real jump scares to speak of. There's very little paranormal footage. It's just sort of interspersed throughout. It's just the process. It's a film about the process that the parents go through in terms of processing their daughter's death, that the family goes through in terms of processing Alice's death, that has some paranormal elements in it.
Well, again, the reason I was asking about spoilers earlier, so Alice dies by drowning.
Right.
Lake Mungo, I should point out, is a dried up lake. There's you expect to see Lake Mungo, because I didn't know anything about Australian geography. But Lake Mungo is a dried up lake bed, so it used to be a lake once. I'm not sure if that's quite connects up with the drowning image, but what she sees at Lake Mungo, and she partially captures on her mobile phone, is herself looking like she's been long drowned.
Right.
Now, when we see the photographs, the spirit photographs taken in the house, we often get a close-up on the blurred face in the background, which is pixelated or sort of on the camera, coming in and out of focus. Sometimes it looks a lot like the living Alice, whose photographs we saw near the beginning of the movie. But sometimes it looks like the drowned Alice. So I did wonder every now and again if maybe what's haunting the house is not Alice, but the doppelganger. I was also thinking, because Alice buried some of her most treasured possessions, her mobile, a bracelet, a watch, near Lake Mungo, if she wasn't burying them there in case she ended up haunting there. I don't know. It might be just off the top of my head.
It's possible.
But I think, in a way, the unanswered questions in this movie make it a far more interesting movie.
Yes, and I agree with you on that. There's also the last scene in the film where the mom goes back to see Ralph, and he's having her visualize going through the house and going through the different rooms as they're about to leave, because they end up moving. Eventually they end up just moving. They have to move. They can't stay in the house anymore for various reasons, probably just too much pain, and so they do that, and she goes into the bedroom and her daughter isn't there. But then we were spliced together with another scene from one of Alice's last sessions with Ralph, where she's having a dream where her mother is doing exactly what she's doing in the session with Ralph, moving through the house, and her mother can't see her. She is there. She has these dreams that she's in the house, and at first, it seems frightening, but then her mother comes in the room and her mother can't see her. So, you get this impression that, the family has moved on, but Alice is still there.
Oh, yeah.
Alice is still there. And it's sad. It's sad. Like many ghost stories tend to be. There's tragedy, there's, the inability or perhaps even the unwillingness to move on, those sorts of things. And you get a lot of that here. Really, really, it's a solid film. If you're looking for jump scares and, sort of overt terror, this isn't that kind of film. This is a movie that you actually kind of have to sit down and watch.
Yes.
There's no gore. There are no demons. This isn't The Conjuring or anything like that. But yeah, you've got a solid film on your hands. So, kudos to you for recommending this. I'm very
glad that you liked it.
Yeah. It was extremely good. Did we miss anything? Is there anything that we should have?
We have, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Now I made a note of this. I'm just going to check my notes, because I promptly looked up the people involved on Twitter to see if any of them were on Twitter. And what I found out, I'm sorry about this, I should have got this ready earlier. The actor who plays Matthew, the son, is now in the film business as a writer. And what else is he doing? Sorry about this.
No, it's okay.
Yes, he is now a writer and a director. So he's on Twitter, Marty J. Sharp, who played Matthew. I couldn't find the director or the director of photography or the production designer on Twitter. So I hope they're all still working in the business, because they did a bloody good job with Lake Mungo. I'd like to think they go on to even better things.
It's been 15 years. This is 15 years old. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Shudder for this Halloween season released a new list for the top 100 like scary movies or whatever. This made the top 100.
Well, I'm not at all surprised. And I personally didn't find it scary, but I know a lot of people have.
It's got a very heavy tone to it.
Oh, yes.
You're just
of
waiting
atmosphere.
for something to come around the corner on you, like any second now.
Oh yes, it's bleak as hell. And one thing, because this was my third time of seeing it, I saw it last night. I kept looking in the background to see if there were things moving in the background, or if be peering around a door or hiding behind a curtain or something. And
what was
I
the
did
name
spot
of
you.
what was the name of the movie that you that we talked about and we had seen it? It's the zombie or vampire movie with no vampires. It takes place at the border, at the U.S. border.
Savage Land.
The Savage Land. It reminded me of
Yes.
that. It's very similar in tone to that. You don't see a great deal, but there's this constant dread that comes through the entire time. And all the performances are very understated, especially with the one remaining witness, the Mexican dude, that they blame everything on. And it reminded me of that very much. Very much. That was a good movie.
Now, I did find bits of Savage Land extremely disturbing. Well, that might be a subject for another podcast, but Train to Busan is still my favorite zombie movie, but Savage Land is a very close contender for first place. Because
go ahead.
Yeah. I found that it's got a very low-key way of telling the story, but I found it incredibly intense. And the ending extremely satisfying.
Because you get the impression that they've made it into mainstream America. They're wandering out there somewhere. They just sort of disappear, right? Have I got that correct? Do I remember it correctly?
That's not that we don't get the answers there. I get the feeling that they disappeared back into the desert, but they could emerge at any moment.
Okay. Well, I mean, you picked a good one here.
Well, I'm very glad that you liked it.
Yeah. Like I said, it wasn't what I thought it was.
To have my taste validated.
Well, I mean, the movies that I've watched that you've recommended, by and large, I very much enjoyed.
Is there one that you didn't enjoy?
If I do, it's entirely possible, but I don't remember it in such a way that I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I watched that." It was nothing like that. there was the what was the Japanese film, the found footage film?
No way.
Huh? Yeah. That was good. It was extremely intense, very tense movie the entire time. Lake Bodom. I'd love to cover Lake Bodom with you sometime.
Oh yes, that was it was a beautiful film, and that was based on real murders.
Real murders. Real murders
at Lake Bodom.
And that whoever was doing it was maybe still out there.
Oh yes. I thought again, subject for a different podcast, but the ending of Lake Bodom was so out there.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure I believed it, but everything that led up to that it was good. It's a dog's bollocks, mate. It's just so good.
If you get an opportunity, here's that other movie that I was telling you about, Personal Shopper. Very solid ghost story. It's Criterion Collection. So it's very, very good. I've covered it several times.
I vaguely heard of it.
2016 film with Kristen Stewart. Hold on a second. We got a comment here. It's Eric, and he's saying, "Hey, stopping in on my lunch break to hear Mike say you picked a good one. Well, I'll be looking into this one ASAP. Hope you're doing well, Julia." Eric, it's on Tubi, so you can find it today. Not a problem. Eric and I are working on the Fox series of The Exorcist, which is actually something that we're both fucking enjoying because I think it's really good. Okay.
Well, I found it on Amazon Prime, on Amazon UK, not Amazon Prime, but
I would watch it, and I would.
Very reasonable price.
Is it digital or like physical media?
No, it's just as watch it online.
Okay. You know something? I mean, I just had a Japanese film director on a few days ago, and he specializes in samurai films. And when you realize how, I won't go to say how easy it is, but it's not nearly as complicated to make a good film as sometimes it appears by these big Hollywood blockbusters. I mean, he shot a film in 15 days. That it's available now on Prime. And he must have been exaggerating. Because he has friends, and he gets, he's like a martial artist, so he gets some of his students to be in the movie. But he said it took him 15 days, and he must have exaggerated. He said about $500 to make the film. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. It was just a great story, and I think that's what you need. You need a story. If you have a story, then you're going to make a kick-ass movie, and you get people who give a crap to star in it and to direct it. The people behind the camera. You don't need $250 million.
Well, yes, and that's why I love indie horror so much.
Yeah.
Well, one of the many reasons, and why I don't go near the mainstream horror very rarely.
A lot of times it turns out to be a disappointment. It turns out to be
it's an object lesson that obviously some money is needed, because people have to eat. And electricity, that costs money, and cameras, they cost money. Though Savage Land was filmed on borrowed cameras, which again is subject for a different podcast.
Right.
But so some money is necessary. But huge amounts of money is not going to guarantee you a good movie.
No.
And low budget doesn't mean it's going to be crap. Savage Land is brilliant. So, well, what can I say? I just love it.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Okay, I think we're at the point where we rate the film. This channel has a rating system that goes from 0 to 5, up by halves. So 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, all the way to 5. So 0, for example, would be I'd rather have a baby vomit on me than watch this movie again, all the way to 5. As in, like, this is cinema. This is the destination. This is why we talk about films in the first place. Julia, how would you rate Lake Mungo?
Lake Mungo, I would rate that 4.5.
Okay. For the reasons that you said?
For the reasons that I said, it's -0.5 a star because it isn't scary. By my standards, it's not scary.
Okay. I agree with you.
Your mileage may vary.
I started out watching this and letterboxed it at 3 stars. I think I'm going to move it up, though, after this discussion to 4, because what I've realized by having the discussion is that it's really not a horror story at all. It's barely a ghost story. It's more of a character study of these families.
You still there, darling? Tech issues.
All right, I'm back. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, we're fading in and out. I lost power, and then the internet's been on the blink ever since then. But I'm going to give it 4. Again, just understand what it is in advance. If you think it's going to be like some stupid, that Grave Encounters or something like that, with demons popping out everywhere or something along those lines, that's not what it is. And that makes it better. I think that makes it better. So good for us. Would you like to let's get back either Lake Bodom or
Lake Bodom? I'd love to do that. Savage Land, I'd love to do that.
Okay, let's how about next week? You want to do Lake Bodom? We'll talk about it.
Yes.
We'll talk about it. I will talk about it after the show, or we'll do a little Twitter DMing, and
we'll put
it together.
Very similar name, very different movie from Lake Mungo.
Extremely different from Lake Mungo, and I think I like Bodom a little more. I'm not even a slasher film fan per se because
No,
they're
me
just
neither, but
dumb.
there's an exception for that one.
Yeah, exactly. This one's actually good. I was on a show recently, and I saw it was like somebody else's recommendation, and we watched the remake of that film Maniac with Elijah Wood. Oh my God, it was awful. I ended up giving it like 1 star. And I was like, this is like, I'm being generous. This is, yeah. So most slasher films are just really dumb and they're gore for gore's sake. This is actually not that. Okay. Tell people where they can find you, Julia. And my camera's frozen again, so I'm just going to go with the avatar. Tell people where they can find you and what you got coming up this week on your channel.
I'm on YouTube as Morgan Scorpion. I'm on Twitter as Morgan Scorpion. And I am no longer on Facebook, but that is a different story.
Okay. You got anything coming up? Or something that you just released? Your M.R. James?
Well,
you have some M.R. James?
I did the M.R. James Treasure of Abbot Thomas last week, so that's on my YouTube channel. What's going to happen this Saturday, I don't know, because there's something I want to start recording. But as you can hear, there's a slight frog in my throat, and I'm not sure I can hold up for it. So I might be, I've got a prudent reserve, which is now just 2 stories that I've already recorded. So it might end up being one of those. I can't predict.
Okay. Wait, wasn't there also, I just saw up on Twitter, the Theodore Roosevelt Wendigo story? Was that you?
Oh, yes, that was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I was amazed at how well that one took off, and I can't really understand why, but
Well, it's a good story, and you're a good reader.
I'm grateful that people liked it. Yes.
Awesome.
Wish I could do like that every week.
All right. I have had a stream every day for 4 days now. Monday we were on for the Evil Dead Rise review. Tuesday.
I can't wait to see that. I am so looking forward to seeing that.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It just hit digital here in the US. It's already on digital. We had that. Let's see what else. Tuesday, I had the interview with Toshi Asaka, the Japanese film director. Wednesday, we had Eric and I on doing The Exorcist, episodes 1 and 2. Today is you. Tomorrow, I'll be putting out Chapter 6 on my backup channel, American Werewolf EU. The extended universe, I'll be doing Chapter 6 of Dracula by Bram Stoker. Last week, I finished and completed The Dunwich Horror by H.P. Lovecraft, but Dracula is an ongoing thing, 1 chapter at a time. And maybe I'll find something in the interim also, or in addition to that, something shorter that I could just sort of put out there as a one-off, maybe some H.G. Wells or something along those lines. Okay, I guess that's it for us right now. My thanks once again to Morgan Scorpion for stopping in as always. It looks like we'll be back next week sometime with the second Lake movie and a very different Lake Bodom, a very different film. But my thanks for coming in and hanging out midday. Very big difference. Yes, and we'll see you all in the next video. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.